Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Headbangers Closet. Appreciate everybody checking out the channel. So for this video is going to be part two of kind of a series I guess I started a few weeks ago. And I apologize, I'm really not creative at all, so my titles for videos are shitty. But I guess the series is going to be called Albums I Grew Up Listening To, and this is part two. So kind of just a little bit backstory. You know, I grew up in the 80s, big fan of the 80s metal, all the bands that came out through the whole decade. So I wanted to do a video of all the albums I listened to when I was growing up, and MTV played a huge part of that. I would see the video on MTV and like the band, and get the cassette tape with the record or whatnot. So I figured, okay, let's do a series on that, and the prerequisite criteria is it had to have an awesome video from the record that got me into the band. So there's only going to be two bands in this series that I actually heard the music before I saw a video, and one of them I talked about in part one. So before I go any further, we'll kind of like recap, I guess, part one. So the first one was Wasp, then we had Rats, Out of the Cellar, and then we had Motley Crue's Theater of Pain, Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry, Ozzy's Blizzard of Oz, Van Halen's 1984, and Motley Crue's Shout at the Devil. And Motley Crue is one of those bands I heard before I saw the videos. Motley Crue's Shout at the Devil album came out, and one of the kids in my school, I went to a K through 8 Catholic school. A kid had it, one of the older kids had it, he played it in a boombox. I thought it was kind of funny, listening to Shout at the Devil before we went into Catholic school, and then again at recess, and then after school. But I heard it on the playground first, and I got the cassette tape. And it wasn't until after that, sometime in '84, my town got cable. Like, they rigged up my town to get the cable. And we had cable at my house. I watched MTV. And a huge part of shaping who I was as a metal fan. Back then there was no terms like hair band or glam band. It was all just, heavy metal. That's how it was, in the magazines. That's how, the people talked about it. It was just heavy metal. So that was part one, and it was 80 to 85. We're going to continue on that on part two, 80 to 85. Part three will be 86 and 87. And I'll go through the decade and talk about the records. I picked up when they came out and listened to them, became a fan and stuff like that. So a lot of cool bands, a lot of great records to talk about, and some cool videos as well. So let's get right to it. The first one in part two is the Scorpions' Blackout. Came out March 29th, 1982. And I could have talked about Love at First Sting with, obviously, Rock You Like a Hurricane, the huge hit, but I like this one better. I just like this album better. Great songs like Can't Live Without You, Dynamite, China White, Blackout, the title track, a huge song, awesome, that new wave of British heavy metal sound. VK, if you're watching this, listen to the song China White and tell me it doesn't sound like they were listening to a ton of Led Zeppelin while they were writing this album. But great songs, great video. The video that I remember most is No One Like You, where a dude gets arrested, brought to Alcatraz, and he's singing about the girl, and her picture's on the wall of his cell, and it's this chicken body is going to electrocute him, and then he wakes up, and it's all just a dream. But a cool video is Inner Sleeve, and then there's the lyrics right there. This one's on Harvest Records. Let's see. Yep, Harvest Records. And I think there was, if I'm not mistaken, there was some kind of documentary or VHS home video type of deal, chronologically, or covering rather their world tour, their U.S. tour for this record. And I don't remember where I saw it. It was a long time ago. I only remember bits and pieces of it. But there's some music videos that they made from that video, and there was parts where they're in this record store in Texas signing autographs, and it's packed out, and there's chicks out in the street in front of the venue singing singing the songs to Blackout, and it was pretty cool. I don't remember where I saw it, and if anybody knows where that video is, if you can find it on YouTube or something, let me know. I'd like to check it out again. I don't really remember it too well, but anyway, Blackout, 1982 from the Scorpions. And the next one is Dio's The Last in Line. Came out July 2nd, 1984. Basically, the title track, Last in Line, you had Mystery and We Rock with the big videos that got a lot of airplay. And funny thing is, if you remember VH1 Classic and that show Metal Mania they had on, always playing those videos on Metal Mania was kind of cool. And I actually did not know Dio was a singer in Black Sabbath until way later. When I'm talking way later, I'm talking the 90s when I was in high school. So, peak Ronnie James Dio right there. Picture of a bunch of people at his shows. This one's on Warner Brothers Records. Pretty cool record right here. Big fan of Dio. Dio is one of those guys, I dug the music, but I dug the image. I've I thought it looked like he was like living in a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, which a lot of those bands were. I mean, that was great about the '80s, in my opinion. Like the music was cool, the image was cool, like the stuff, the subject matter of the videos is cool. It appealed to like a young adolescent like myself. Like all this, a lot of money. They always got the girls and stuff like that. So it's kind of the whole package kind of sucked you in. But anyway, Dio's Last in Line. And the next one I have to talk about. I like the record, but I talked about this particular video in part 1, and I would be remiss if I didn't show it in part 2, but it's Kisses Animalized, came out September 13th, 84, and the video was Heaven's on Fire. And if it wasn't for Heaven's on Fire, I probably wouldn't be a metal fan. I loved the video, I thought it was super cool, so I spent a lot of hours after school watching MTV to see the video, and because of that, got to see, 84, you had Rats Out of the Cellar with Back for More, Round and Round, you obviously Motley Crue, and then you had Dawkins, you had Twisted Sister with I Want to Rock and We're Not Going to Take It, Ozzy Osbourne, you had a bunch of stuff, the Wasp videos, a lot of the stuff on part 1 from back in that time, and so I was able to get into a lot of those bands because I wanted to see the Heaven's on Fire video, so really cool. And a lot of kids at my school were Kiss fans, and there was always debates going on what sounded better, the stuff with the makeup and without the makeup. I'm like, it's still kind of, whatever they're wearing kind of sounds the same to me. But I do think it's funny that they went from like studs and leather and spikes and the hair and the makeup and the boots to the homeless guy look, the caveman look maybe. So that was kind of funny. But there's a record on Mercury Records. So, I mean, this is not my favorite Kiss record of the 80s. I really dig Asylum and Crazy Nights. I think Kiss put a lot of cool stuff in the 80s. But I have to include it because of Heaven's on Fire. Sort of, one of the handful of things that kind of started it all. Kiss Animalize. Next one was a huge record for MTV and a huge record for the band, obviously. It was Quiet Riot's Metal Health. Came out March 11th, 83. The two big videos were Metal Health and Come On Feel the Noise. Always loved watching Quiet Riot's videos. I always thought it was cool with the kid. The metalhead kid had the mask on his wall. He went to the show, got the mask. They threw it out and he grabbed it. And he's playing the tunes and the stereo's blasting. He can't turn it down. And then the mask falls off on his face and he can't get it off. I thought that was kind of cool. This record right here. But yeah, dig this album. Come On Feel the Noise is awesome. I still crank it to this day. Same with Metal Health. And a few years ago, Metal Health had the song was in a video, a car commercial in a Super Bowl, so I thought it was kind of cool. But yeah, Metal Health. Next one is Judas Priest, Bridge of Steel. Came out April 14th, 1980. Awesome record. I'm not going to get into everything. You guys know the record. It's just huge record in heavy metal history, just flawless album. But the big video on it was Breaking the Law. And just remember, the video, they break into the bank and they're like singing, they're jumping right in front of the teller's face singing, "You don't know," and she's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then they get in the getaway car and the cops are chasing them and they're playing the guitars and the bass, drumming in the back of the getaway car. I thought that was kind of cool and kind of badass, But great record, awesome record, really. Judas Priest, Bridge of Steel. Next one was another big one I remember in the day. It's Def Leppard's High and Dry, which came out July 6, 1981. Handful of cool songs off this record on MTV. The big ones, obviously, Bringing on the Heartbreak, but songs like Let It Go, Lady Strange, Mirror Mirror, just awesome. Just like the Scorpions, a big fan of Def Leppard's early work. Hysteria was cool with Pour Some Sugar on Me and Animal, and they blew up massive after that. But I think the first three records, On Through the Night, this one, and Pyromania, their best ones. And like I said, Bringing on the Heartbreak was the big one from this record. And some people call those early Def Leppard records a new wave of British heavy metal. I completely agree. It's the album right there. It's just songs like Let It Go. Just awesome, just guitar riff-driven song. And definite new wave of British heavy metal stuff. The next one we're going to talk about, surprise, surprise, is Motley Crue. Their debut record, Too Fast for Love, came out November 10th, 1981. And Motley Crue is going to be in a lot of these videos. They were my all-time favorite band growing up in the 80s. And in 1989, another band unseated them as my favorite band of all time. Can you guys guess what band that is? I think it should be pretty obvious. But love Motley Crue, love this record. And in fact, I actually heard this one. I did Theater of Pain and Shout the Devil on part 1. I actually had both of those cassette tapes and records before I heard anything off this. This is a pretty cool version. It's in really, really bad shape. But it's an Elektra version, but it's the white label. I'm a little bit careful here. So the sleeve is just ripped real bad. The insert, rather, with the lyrics. And then here is the record on the white Elektra label, which is pretty cool. I've got a lot of different versions of this particular record. I guess I would say going back and maybe to like the 90s, I would say that Motley Crue, Shout the Devil, and Too Fast for Love were amongst a few Metallica stuff and some Iron Maiden stuff was one of the bands I really like to collect. So I got a bunch of Too Fast for Love records. So there we go, Too Fast for Love, debut record from Motley Crue. Love this album. The video was Live Wire. Always remember Vince in his red leather outfit, just kind of playing like basically like in the back of the insert, just on that sound stage. And kind of picture it maybe being at one of those places on the Sunset Strip in LA where they're just playing the song. Really, really cool. I dug it. And then I thought it was really cool that after that they kind of had to change the way they looked with Shout the Devil and Looks That Kill video. So next one is another Judas Priest. Defenders of the Faith came out January 13th, 84. Yeah, this album was amazing. I feel it's completely, so underrated. It's just a great record. I love it. It's just as good, in my opinion, as British Steel. But Priest had that string of awesome records in the early '80s, mid '80s, and I feel that Defenders of the Faith kind of gets forgotten about, but it's awesome. Yeah, Free Will Burning, Jawbreaker, Rock Hard, Ride Free, The Sentinel. Dude, you can't listen to The Sentinel and not headbang. It's impossible. Eat Me Alive's great tune, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, Heavy Duty, Defenders of the Faith, and the big video on MTV was Free Will Burning. Let's get our sleeve, lyrics, record. And all of these bands I got into because of MTV. Yes, I did have Hit Parader and Metal Edge, and I would kind of see the bands in the magazine. But if I didn't listen to them, I wasn't buying their cassette album, cassette or their record. So Motley Crue was the only one I actually heard before, and one other, which will play in another video. But Motley Crue's the only one I heard before. So, like I said, all these records, they had a big video. And the last one I'm going to talk about is Def Leppard's Pyromania. My favorite Def Leppard record came out January 20th, 83. And there was a handful of songs off this record that were also on MTV. Foolin', Rock of Ages, Too Late for Love. But the big one was Photograph. Awesome, awesome tune. Loved the video. I think it was a super cool video. And I played it a lot and always cranked it. That guitar riff is awesome when it comes in. There's the record right there, Mercury Records. Amazing album. Again, another awesome kind of new wave of British heavy metal sounding album. I really, really dig it. Rock Till You Drop into Photograph. That's an awesome 1-2 punch for, new wave of British heavy metal sounding record. I love it. Anyway, Pyromania, Def Leppard, January 20th, 83. So that's my list for part 2. Just more awesome metal and, 80s metal and hard rock from the early 80s. What you think about it, you guys want to talk about any of these records, feel free to do so. Leave me a comment down below. I love talking about it. Also, find me on Instagram, Headbangers Closet. I post pictures of my collection all the time, pictures I've taken at shows and stuff like that. I love talking to people on that as well. Post a picture of an album, and you get a big long thread of just a handful of folks talking about it. Their opinions on it and stuff like that. It's always fun for me. So anyway, do that if you want to. If not, no big deal. But anyway, I hope you dug the video. And like I said, let me know what you think about them in the comments below. And appreciate you guys checking out the channel, as always. And I'll have another video for you very soon. Cheers, guys.